The trade that was never really about Bronny, the NBA thought it was looking at a small trade. A young guard, a famous last name, a quiet move in the middle of a noisy offseason, but Cleveland may have just made the most dangerous move on the entire chessboard. Because when the Cavaliers reportedly brought Bronny James to Cleveland, the headline sounded simple. Bronny James changes teams. The Lakers move a developing player. The Cavs take a chance on a young guard with defensive upside and one of the most recognizable names in basketball. But anyone who understands how the NBA really works saw something much bigger immediately. This was not just about Bronny's minutes. This was not just about his jumper, his defense, his development, or whether he can become a steady rotation player. This was about leverage. This was about emotion. This was about history. And most importantly, this was about LeBron James. Cleveland did not need to say a word. They did not need a dramatic press conference. They did not need a billboard, a public pitch, or some carefully written message from the front office. The trade itself said everything. Come home, LeBron. Your son is already here. That is what makes this story so powerful. On paper, Bronny is still early in his NBA journey. He is not a superstar. He is not the player who changes a franchise overnight by himself. But he is connected to the one man who can still shift the entire emotional direction of the league. And that connection gives Cleveland something no other team can copy. The Cavaliers are not just chasing a player. They are chasing the final chapter of a legend. LeBron's story with Cleveland has always been different. This is where he was born. This is where he became a basketball miracle. This is where he carried impossible expectations, left, came back, and delivered the championship that changed everything for Northeast Ohio. Miami was a business decision. Los Angeles was a global platform, but Cleveland was always home. And now, if Bronny is sitting in that locker room, wearing those colors, walking into that building, Cleveland suddenly has the most emotional recruiting pitch in modern NBA history. Not money, not fame, not Hollywood, family, a father, a son, a city that never stopped believing, and one final chance to close the circle where it all began. That is why this trade is bigger than it looks. Because if LeBron responds the way Cleveland hopes, this will not be remembered as a small off-season transaction. It will be remembered as the first domino in one of the most emotional endings the NBA has ever seen. So the real question is not whether Bronny can help Cleveland right away. The real question is this: did the Cavaliers just quietly bring LeBron James back home before anyone realized what was happening? And if you are watching this from Cleveland, Los Angeles, Miami, or anywhere in the world, comment your city below right now. If you believe LeBron should finish his career in Cleveland beside Bronny, press 1. If you think he should stay away and write his ending somewhere else, press 2. And make sure you subscribe because this story is only getting started. Bronny James is not just a name. Before anyone can understand why Cleveland made this move, they have to understand why Bronny James is such a complicated player to talk about. Because with Bronny, nothing has ever been normal. He was not introduced to basketball fans the way most young prospects are. He did not quietly rise through high school rankings, surprise scouts, and slowly earn attention. From the moment he was old enough to dribble a basketball, the world was already watching. Every highlight, every mistake, every good game, every quiet night, every ranking, every rumor, it all became part of a national conversation because of one reason. He was LeBron James' son. That name opened doors, but it also created pressure most young athletes could never understand. Bronny did not get the luxury of developing in silence. He had to grow up while millions of people compared him to one of the greatest players in NBA history, and that was never fair. LeBron was a once-in-a-generation force at 17 years old. Bronny was a different kind of player with a different body, a different game, and a different path. At Sierra Canyon, he showed flashes of what made scouts interested. He was not the loudest player on the floor, but he understood the game. He defended, he moved the ball, he played within a system. He made the extra pass. He knew spacing, timing, and angles. Coaches saw a player who had spent his whole life around professional basketball and absorbed the details most teenagers miss. Then came USC, and everything changed. Bronny's health scare in 2023 stopped the basketball conversation completely. Suddenly, nobody was talking about rankings, draft boards, or NBA potential. They were talking about life, family, fear, recovery, and whether a young man would ever play the sport he loved again. That moment changed the way people looked at him. When he returned to the court, it was not about numbers anymore. It was about courage. It was about composure. It was about trying to rebuild rhythm after a terrifying interruption. His freshman season did not produce superstar statistics, but it showed something else. He was still fighting. He was still learning. He was still standing. That mattered. So when the Lakers drafted him, people argued. Some said it was because of LeBron, some said it was because of the story, some said other players deserved the spot, but the truth is more layered than that. Bronny was not drafted as a finished product. He was drafted as a long-term project with intelligence, defensive tools, and unusual maturity. And now, Cleveland has stepped into that story. The Cavaliers are not pretending Bronny is ready to carry a franchise. They know exactly what he is. A young guard with room to grow, a player who needs patience, a player who can become useful if developed correctly. But they also know what he represents. Bronny is not just a prospect. He is a bridge between the present and the past, between Cleveland and LeBron, between basketball strategy and family emotion. And in the NBA, sometimes the most powerful asset is not the player who scores 25 points a night. Sometimes it is the player who changes the decision of someone who can. LeBron's dream was always bigger than basketball. LeBron James has won almost everything a basketball player can win. Championships, MVPs, Finals MVPs, Olympic gold medals, All-NBA selections, scoring records, longevity records, moments that will be replayed for decades. He has played under more pressure than almost any athlete in American sports history and somehow survived all of it. But near the end of a career like that, the question changes. It is no longer just, can you still win? It becomes, how do you want the story to end? And for LeBron, the answer has been hiding in plain sight for years. He wanted to play with his son, not just watch Bronny make it, not just sit courtside as a proud father, not just post congratulations on social media. LeBron wanted to share an NBA court with him, to wear the same uniform, to stand in the same huddle, to experience, even for a short time, something no father and son had ever truly experienced at that level before. That dream is bigger than basketball, because for LeBron, family has always been part of the brand. But more importantly, it has always been part of the man. He came from Akron. He carried his childhood, his mother's sacrifices, and his own early responsibilities into every chapter of his career. He became a global icon, but he never fully disconnected from the idea of home, legacy, and family. That is why the Bronny connection is so powerful. At 40 years old, LeBron is not choosing the next 10 years. He is choosing the final scene, the final jersey, the final arena walk, the final fan reaction, the final story people tell when they explain who he was and what he meant. At this point, money cannot be the whole answer. LeBron has already made generational wealth. Fame cannot be the answer either. He has been famous since he was a teenager. Another big market spotlight cannot give him something he does not already have. But Cleveland can give him something different. A return, a reunión, a full circle ending, and now, if Bronny is there, the pitch becomes almost impossible to ignore. It is not just come help us win. It is come finish this story the way only you can. It is not just a basketball offer. It is an emotional invitation. LeBron knows what Cleveland means. He knows what 2016 meant. He knows what it felt like to deliver a title to a city that had waited generation. He knows the sound of that crowd, the weight of that jersey, the history of that building, and the love that still exists underneath every complicated chapter. And now Cleveland can offer him the one thing that turns nostalgia into action. Bronny. That is why this is dangerous for the rest of the league. Because when LeBron starts weighing his final decision, he may not be choosing between contracts. He may be choosing between endings. And if one ending includes his son, his home, and one more chance to compete in the place where his legend began, then every other offer suddenly feels smaller. LeBron's final dream was never just to keep playing, it was to make the ending mean something. Cleveland's quietest power move. The smartest moves in the NBA are not always the loudest. Sometimes the move that changes everything does not come with a superstar press conference, a viral quote, or a dramatic announcement. Sometimes it happens quietly. A small transaction, a name added to a roster, a headline that looks simple until you realize the message underneath it. That is what Cleveland may have done with Bronny James. Because the Cavaliers did not just look at their roster and say, we need another young guard. That would be too simple. They looked at the entire league, looked at LeBron's situation, looked at his age, looked at his family priorities, looked at their own emotional connection to him, and saw a window. A rare window, the kind of window that does not open often in professional sport. Cleveland has spent years building itself into a serious team again. Donovan Mitchell gave the Cavaliers star power. Their young core gave them structure. Their defense gave them identity. Their playoff experience gave them hunger. But in the NBA, being good is not always enough. Good teams make the playoffs. Special teams change the league. LeBron, even near the end, still changes the league. So Cleveland had to ask itself a brutal question. How do you recruit a player who has already seen everything? How do you impress a man who has already lived in Hollywood, won in Miami, delivered in Cleveland, broken records, carried franchises, and become one of the most influential athletes alive? You do not sell him ordinary things. you sell him, meaning that is where Bronny becomes the perfect chess piece. Cleveland did not have to overtalk. They did not have to beg. They simply had to create the conditions. Put Bronny in the building, make the roster competitive. Keep the emotional door open. Then let LeBron look at the board and understand what is waiting for him. That is elite front office strategy because this move works on multiple levels. If Bronny develops, Cleveland gains a young player with defensive instincts and upside. If LeBron comes, Cleveland gains a legendary player, a global spotlight, a playoff leader, and a story that dominates the league. If both happen, the Cavaliers become the center of the basketball world overnight. And the most impressive part is that Cleveland can frame the move however it wants. They can say they believe in Bronny's development. That is believable. They can say they like his defensive IQ. That is reasonable. They can say they see long-term value in his growth. That makes sense. But everyone paying attention knows there is a deeper layer. The Cavaliers are speaking without speaking. They are recruiting without recruiting. They are building a pitch that LeBron does not need explained to him because he feels it the second he sees it. His son, his city, his final chapter. That is why the move is so clean. It puts pressure on LeBron without disrespecting him. It gives him a choice without cornering him. It creates a path without forcing the story too early. And now the league has to wait because Cleveland has already moved its piece. The question is whether the king is ready to move next. Why the Lakers let the story slip away. For the Lakers, moving Bronny James was never going to look simple because when Los Angeles drafted him, everyone understood the bigger picture. Bronny was not just another second-round pick. He was part of the most emotional storyline in basketball. LeBron James sharing an NBA roster with his son. That gave the Lakers attention, history, and a powerful connection to their biggest star. But the problem was this. Emotion does not fix a roster. The Lakers still had championship pressure. They still had questions about depth, direction, salary, and whether they could give LeBron one more real run. And as LeBron's future became less certain, Bronny's value inside Los Angeles changed. With LeBron, Bronny was a historic bridge. Without LeBron, Bronny became a young, developing guard who still needed time. That is the cold reality of NBA business. A player can mean one thing emotionally and another thing strategically. The Lakers had to ask themselves whether keeping Bronny helped their future or whether moving him gave them assets and flexibility for the next phase. Cleveland saw the situation differently. To the Lakers, Bronny may have become movable. To the Cavaliers, he was the key to something much bigger. He was not just a prospect. He was the one person who could make Cleveland's pitch to LeBron feel impossible to ignore. That is why this trade could haunt Los Angeles. If LeBron follows Bronny back to Ohio, Lakers fans will not remember this as a small roster move. They will remember it as the moment the Lakers let the final LeBron chapter slip away. Because sometimes the most valuable part of a trade is not the player leaving. It is the legend who might follow him. Rich Paul and the hidden power game. In the NBA, the biggest moves rarely happen by accident. And when the names LeBron James, Bronny James, Cleveland Cavaliers, and Los Angeles Lakers are all connected, one person becomes impossible to ignore. Rich Paul. Rich Paul is more than LeBron's longtime agent. He is one of the most influential power brokers in basketball. Through Clutch Sports, he has helped shape careers, control narratives, and guide superstar decisions across the league. That matters here because Rich Paul represents both LeBron and Bronny. So Bronny's future is not only about minutes, development, or roster fit. It is also connected to LeBron's final chapter. Every move involving Bronny carries two meanings. One for the young player trying to build his career, and one for the father deciding how he wants his legendary run to end. That does not mean every detail is a secret conspiracy, but it does mean this situation is not random. Bronny landing in Cleveland would be too perfect to ignore. This is LeBron's basketball home. This is the franchise that drafted him. This is the city where he became a star, left, returned, and delivered the 2016 championship. If someone wanted to build the strongest emotional pitch possible, this is exactly what it would look like. Put Bronny in Cleveland. Keep the Cavaliers competitive. Let LeBron look at the situation and understand the message without anyone needing to say it. Your son is here. Your home is here. Your ending can be here. That is the hidden power game. The NBA is played on the court, but it is also played through timing, relationships, leverage, and emotion. And right now, Cleveland may have all four. Why Cleveland is the only ending that feels complete. LeBron James has had 3 great NBA chapters. Miami made him a champion. Los Angeles made him an even bigger global icon, but Cleveland made him a legend. That is why a return to the Cavaliers feels different from every other possibility. Cleveland is where LeBron began. The Cavaliers drafted him in 2003 when he was just a teenager, carrying impossible expectations. He became the hope of an entire region before he was old enough to fully understand the weight of that responsibility. Then he left, and the city felt broken. But when he returned in 2014, everything changed. He came back with a promise. He told Cleveland he wanted to deliver a championship. And in 2016, down 3-1 against the 7-3 Win Warriors, he did exactly that. That title was not just another ring. It was the moment that repaired the relationship forever. Now, the idea of LeBron coming back one more time carries a different kind of emotion. This would not be about proving himself. It would not be about repairing old wounds. It would be about completing the circle. And Bronny makes that circle even stronger. Imagine LeBron walking back into Cleveland, not alone, but with his son already there. Imagine that first home game. Imagine the crowd realizing they are not just watching basketball, but the final chapter of one of the greatest careers in sports history. No other city can offer that. Miami has banners. Los Angeles has spotlight. But Cleveland has the beginning, the heartbreak, the return, the championship, and maybe the farewell. That is why the Cavaliers pitch is so powerful. They may not be able to outshine every mark, but they can outfeel every market. And for LeBron at this stage of his career, that may matter more than anything. What LeBron would actually give the Cavaliers. Take away the emotion for a second. Even without the father-son storyline, LeBron James still makes Cleveland better. He may not be the same explosive athlete from his prime, but he remains one of the smartest players basketball has ever seen. His mind, his passing, his leadership, and his ability to control playoff pressure still have real value. That is exactly what the Cavaliers need. Cleveland already has talent. Donovan Mitchell gives them scoring. Their young core gives them energy and defense. But playoff basketball is different. In the postseason, teams need someone who can slow the game down, read the floor, make the right pass, and calm everyone when the moment gets heavy. LeBron can still do that. He would not need to carry the Cavaliers the way he did in 2007. He would not need to dominate every night like he did in Miami. This version of LeBron would be different. He would be a leader, organizer, closer, and teacher. That could change Cleveland's ceiling. Mitchell would have another elite decision maker beside him. Bronny would have the greatest possible mentor. The locker room would gain championship experience. And the Cavaliers would instantly become one of the most watched teams in the league. This is why the move is not only emotional, it also makes basketball sense. LeBron could help Cleveland in the exact areas young playoff teams often struggle. Late game execution, leadership, composure, and belief. And if he returns with Bronny already there, the Cavaliers are not just getting a farewell story. They are getting a player who can still help them win. The business explosion nobody can ignore. If LeBron James returns to Cleveland with Bronny already on the roster, the NBA will not treat it like a normal signing. It will become a global event. The business impact would be immediate. Tickets would explode. National TV games would increase. Jerseys would fly off shelves. Sponsors would rush toward the story. Every Cavaliers game would suddenly feel like part of a historic farewell tour. And the reason is simple. This story sells more than basketball. It sells family, it sells legacy, it sells home, it sells the image of a father and son sharing the final stage of one of the greatest careers in sports history. That kind of story travels everywhere. Fans in Cleveland would see it as a homecoming. Lakers fans would see it as the end of an era. Global fans would see it as something rare, emotional, and unforgettable. The first game with LeBron and Bronny in Cavaliers uniforms would be massive. The first matchup against the Lakers would be must-watch television. Every road arena would want to witness the moment before it disappears. For Cleveland, the impact would go beyond the court. Local businesses, merchandise, tourism, media attention, and city pride would all rise. LeBron has already shown how much one player can change the visibility of Cleveland. Now imagine that happening again, but with Bronny beside him. That is why this trade matters so much. The Cavaliers may have positioned themselves to own the biggest story in basketball, and they did it quietly. One trade, one young player, one famous name, one message to LeBron. Come home? If he does, Cleveland will not just have a team. They will have the most powerful NBA storyline in the world. The final decision is bigger than basketball. In the end, this story comes down to one question. What does LeBron James want his final chapter to mean? Cleveland has already made its move. By bringing in Bronny, the Cavaliers created a pitch that no other team can copy. They are not just offering LeBron a roster spot, they are offering him family, history, home, and closure. That is powerful. From a strategy standpoint, it is brilliant. Cleveland understands that LeBron cannot be recruited like a normal superstar anymore. He has money, he has fame, he has rings, he has records. At this stage, the only thing that can truly move him is meaning, and Bronny gives Cleveland meaning. For the Lakers, the lesson is painful. Sometimes a franchise does not fully understand the value of a connection until it is gone. Bronny may not have been their most important player on the court, but he may have been their strongest emotional link to LeBron. For the Cavaliers, the lesson is different. Smart teams do not always chase the biggest headline. Sometimes they chase the one move that changes everything behind the scenes. But there is also a human lesson here. This is not only about trades, contracts, or championships. It is about a father and son. It is about a young player trying to build his own name while carrying the weight of the most famous last name in basketball. It is about a legendary athlete deciding whether the end of his career should be about another spotlight or something deeper. Family, home, legacy. LeBron does not need to prove he is great anymore. That part of the story is finished. What he can still choose is how people feel when they remember the ending. Does he finish somewhere else as a superstar chasing one more run? Or does he finish in Cleveland beside Bronny, in the city where everything began? That is why this decision matters. Not because it guarantees a championship, not because it solves every basketball problem, but because sports are not only about winning, they are about memory. They are about connection. They are about the moments people never forget. If Cleveland pulls this off, the Bronny trade will be remembered as the first move in a historic ending. The Cavaliers did not just acquire a young guard. They acquired a chance at closure. Now the ball is in LeBron's court. If you believe LeBron should come home to Cleveland and finish his career beside Bronny, hit 1 inch the comments. If you think he should choose a different ending, hit 2. Tell us where you are watching from, and if you want more NBA drama, trade rumors, legacy debates, and behind-the-scenes stories, make sure you like, share, and subscribe right now.